Now, the headline from the AJ voicing their opinions. City Council grapples with opening businesses. Mayor to appoint an economic recovery task force. Yes! Jody, we've got another task force. We've got the president's task force. I think the lieutenant governor has a task force. I think the governor is coming up with a task force. Maybe it's the same task force. The city of Lubbock is going to come up with a task force as well. And Jody, I'm thinking about launching my own task force. I'm thinking that I may have to launch a task force of concerned listeners about different subject areas. So many task forces are being talked about right now. Very few people are working, but if you're in the task force business, you're going to get a job. If you want on a task force in America, you're going to get on a task force, okay? So just start applying today for your favorite task force, and you will get a task force. Now, what is the mayor going to appoint a task force for? To look at reopening Lubbock, Texas. Now, Amarillo, apparently, I don't know if they're smarter than us. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but they were able to reopen their economy, at least allow non-essential businesses to reopen without a task force. So I don't know. Again, I don't know where in the Constitution it allows them to do that without a task force, but they were allowed to do so.
Have their deaths gone up there? Infection rates and all that?
No, I don't think so, no. Yeah, but I haven't seen them as a hot zone or anything. Now, I have seen where the governor has said that Lubbock doesn't have things under control. But no one's named Amarillo. Midland as well has opened up their businesses. I believe Plainview has. So different places have opened up their non-essential businesses without a task force being necessary. But the council got together yesterday to talk about that and so much more. They held their meeting over Zoom, which is always fun to watch. It's always fun to see what the council members are doing while they're Zooming. And the mayor and the council yesterday discussing the possibility of reopening Lubbock. Yesterday, the mayor said that he will appoint a task force this week, potentially by Thursday, to advise the city on economic recovery. He announced the decision during a council meeting on Tuesday, hosted by video conference, that the task force will be composed of citizens, a few members of the council, business owners, healthcare professionals, education experts, members of nonprofits, and members of the faith community. So everybody's going to be on a task force. Pope said, quote, its sole job will be to advise the council on the actions needed to be taken to restart our economy while at the same time providing for a safe Lubbock. The goals will include saving lives, livelihoods, to chart a path back to normal for our community and explore and advise us as to what the daily life will be post-COVID-19. Pope says the group will begin meeting after members are appointed. He said the city council is slated to get a first report back from the task force by the end of the month. So we're going to get a report from the task force by the end of the month. We're supposed to be reopened maybe by the end of the month, but we're going to get a report first from the task force that has not yet been put together. I mean, how do we know we're going to get a report back from the task force that hasn't been even formed yet? And why is it going to take till the end of the month to get the first report back when we're actually supposed to be reopened by May 1st? Anyway, one of the issues that was talked about yesterday was whether or not businesses should be opened. And I got a couple of cuts that I want to play. And the first one that we're going to play, and I've got to give Councilwoman Latrell Joy a lot of kudos here, because she has really been the voice on the city council in front of this, saying, folks, we don't have a level playing field. Hey, Jody, let's run cut 28. Latrell Joy, yes, it's about a 5-minute cut, folks, because she kind of goes into explanation on what Lubbock is doing and who is responsible. Keep that in mind. Who is responsible for where we are right now? Let's go ahead and play cut 28.
I think we need to share some information. Unfortunately, because of the quorum rules that we operate under, sometimes we don't all know the same information at the same time. First of all, regardless of what I may think or anyone else on council, that ultimate declaration decision is the mayor's, which puts a lot of responsibility on him. And I'm sure he's willing to listen to us, but people need to know that is his final decision. Secondly, we just finished Easter. We heard a lot of discussion about the churches, and I want it made clear that we did not shutter the churches, that the churches did their own changes based upon what they thought was best for their particular church. We had some rules that they thought were good and they followed. We had some who got creative and did some church by in their parking lots, as long as they socially distanced and didn't get together in a large group. And then thirdly, it has come to our attention that some other cities have not closed their what are termed as non-essential businesses, or businesses with non-essential services. That has come to our attention. For example, Midland, Abilene, Plainview have all had their own interpretation of whether or not to close the non-essential services businesses. And what we found in those statistics is that there are cities who have been much more stringent. But we've also found, based upon what Mr. Atkinson has conveyed to us, is that it didn't necessarily change the rate at which the virus affected that city.
No!
It is time for us to level the playing field. I said this at the last meeting, and I'll say it again. It makes no sense for someone to be able to buy a toy in one of the big box stores and not be able to go to the toy store at 82nd and Slide. There is responsibility on the part of the business owner, as Mr. Christian has pointed out, and there's responsibility on the part of individuals, of our citizens. No one's going to make them go to a business to shop if they're not comfortable. But right now, we are prohibiting the businesses from being able to operate, and to operate on the same basis that we have some other businesses that are operating. So we must address it, and we must do it quickly. We have one of the finest medical systems in the state. But I think we're almost operating out of fear. And I'll be honest with you, I'm in one of the most vulnerable groups, but I cannot live in fear all the time.
All right, so that's Councilwoman Latrell Joy. What she is saying is, hey, first of all, this is the mayor's, this is all up to the mayor. The mayor is the one who decides it. She never mentions Greg Abbott. Not once does she mention Greg Abbott and the governor's order. She says this is up to the mayor. Then she talks about how other cities have opened up Non-essential businesses. Amarillo has opened it up. Plainview has opened it up. Midland has opened it up. There are stricter cities like Lubbock, Texas, and there is no evidence whatsoever that the stricter cities have done a better job at containing the virus than places like Amarillo, Plainview, Midland. And then Latrell Joy, and she's right on this, folks. She is absolutely right on this. Latrell Joy, for the past 2 meetings, has said we have got to open up these bids. We've got to level the playing field. It makes no sense that the big box stores can sell everything they want to, but you can't walk into the toy store over here at 82nd and Slide Road. Does that make any sense? And she is 100% correct on this. Let's go ahead, take the break. When we come back, I've got more audio that I want to play. If you're on hold, we'll get to you, but there's some important clips here that we got to play and get this information out. Who's blaming who and why it's not all on the governor here. We'll be right back. All right, so Councilwoman Latrell Joy saying, listen, this authority here, these orders are coming from the mayor. They're coming from, not once does she mention Governor Greg Abbott. And there's a reason for that, folks. There's a reason for that. It's because Governor Greg Abbott has not shut down any businesses. He has not shut down, he has shut down, the non-essential businesses that are like, hair salons and the like tattoo places, but he has not shut down retail. I've got the executive order in front of me. He has not shut down retail. Now, after Latrell Joy speaks for 5 minutes, this was the response from Mayor Dan Pope about reopening Lubbock.
When I think about the governor's order that's in place, and in the last 10 days, I've had 2 phone conversations with the governor. I've been on a conference call with Dr. Fauci. I've been on a conference call with Dr. Birx, the 2 people that President Trump is relying on. I've had conversations with Governor Abbott's staff. I watch his press conferences and his interviews, and I think that any effort to open up non-essential retail to foot traffic goes against what Governor Abbott has said, and I would quote him when he says the order requires all Texans to stay at home except to provide essential services or do essential things like going to the grocery store, quote unquote. That's the position that we've taken. And I think it's been the most appropriate measure we could take.
All right. So that was Dan Pope saying that the governor's order, what did it say, Jody? Required people to stay at home? Is that what he said? We're going to require people to stay at home. That's what the governor says. You got to stay at home unless you're going to the grocery store. You have to. You got to stay at home unless you're going to the grocery. Here's what the order actually says. In accordance with the guidelines from DSHS Commissioner Dr. Hellestad, and to achieve the goals established by the president to reduce the spread of COVID-19, every person in Texas, except where necessary to provide or obtain essential services, minimize social gatherings, and minimize in-person contact with people who are not in the same household. Minimize. Does that say sit your butt at home? What does it say? It says minimize. In providing or obtaining essential services, people and businesses should follow the guidelines from the president and the CDC by practicing good hygiene, environmental cleanliness, sanitation, implementing social distancing, and working from home if possible. In particular, all services should be provided through remote telework from home unless they're essential services that cannot be provided through remote telework. Now, here's where you get into another part. This is from the governor. In accordance with the guidelines from the president and the CDC, people shall avoid eating or drinking at bars, restaurants, and food courts, or visiting gyms, massage establishments, tattoo studios, piercing studios, or cosmetology salons, provided, however, that the use of a drive-through pickup or delivery option for food and drinks is allowed and highly encouraged throughout the limited duration of this executive order. Doesn't say anything about retail. Does not say anything about in-person, on-foot retail. The executive order does not prohibit people from accessing essential services or engaging in essential daily activities such as going to the grocery store or gas station, providing or obtaining essential services, visiting parks, hunting or fishing, or engaging in physical activity like jogging or bicycling, so long as the necessary precautions are maintained to reduce the transmission of COVID-19 and to minimize the in-person contact with people who are not in the same household. Doesn't say forbid. Governor's a smart guy. Governor knows the legal terms. It says minimize. Does not say shall not visit other people. The final paragraph here. The executive order shall supersede any conflicting order issued by local officials in response to the COVID-19 disaster, but, and this is the important part, but only to the extent that such a local order restricts essential services allowed by this executive order. What this executive order was meant to do. And listen, the governor has, in my opinion, he has not done a good job at communicating, because he told some in the press that this was basically a stay-at-home order. It's not. If you read the actual order, it says nothing about staying at home. It says minimize. But then you get to this, and this is the meat of the executive order. This executive order shall supersede any conflicting order issued by local officials in response to COVID-19, but only to the extent that such local order restricts essential services allowed by this executive order or allows gatherings prohibited by this executive order. That is why Amarillo is open, folks. We've got more audio to play when we come back. Chad Hasty Show, KFYO. Okay, so we're talking about the Lubbock City Council meeting yesterday and this discussion about basically who's responsible. Are we going to reopen businesses? Are we not going to reopen businesses? The City Council, as of right now, is not opening up anything. That Mayor Dan Pope is going to rely on a task force that has not been named yet. Could be named today, but he's already determined that they will submit their first report to him by the end of the month. We're supposed to be, are we going to reopen by the end of the month? We don't know, but the first report will come in by the end of the month. Councilwoman Latrell Joy says, hey, other cities have opened up. It's time to level the playing field here in Lubbock. But I don't know if anyone agrees with her on the council. I mean, no one is really speaking up and saying she's right. We got to reopen things. In fact, Mayor Dan Pope says no. You look at the governor's order, and we can't do it. The governor's order prevents us from reopening. I just read the order to you. Now, to be completely fair, Governor Greg Abbott did tell some reporters that this was a stay-at-home order. But in the actual text, and this has been told to me by folks down in Austin, and I just read you the text as well, or the text of the order, it is not a stay-at-home order. It calls on you to minimize your interactions. You got the woman in Michigan, Gretchen, who's preventing people from buying seeds at grocery stores. She's issued an executive order saying you can't go to each other's homes. You can't go. You can't go to each other's homes. Even if you're family, you can't go to each other's homes. It's in the actual order. Governor Greg Abbott does not do that. This morning, Councilman Steve Massengale was on with Dave and Matt, and he was asked about reopening and what reopening will look like and when it's going to happen. This was one of his answers. Cut 20. It's cut 24, Jody.
Well, here's what I think. In my opinion, when we get the green light, and keep in mind, and I know that a lot of the frustration gets focused on us right now as a city council, but keep in mind, we're under the governor's order right now till April 30th. And by the way, the governor is having a press conference today, and we're hopeful that we'll get some guidance on what reopening looks like from him today, but you never know. In my opinion, when we reopen, I think businesses will be required to continue to practice some form of social distancing. I feel like this face covering the face is going to become more prominent, if not required.
What?
I feel like businesses will continue to have sanitation strategies, cleaning surfaces often, hand sanitizer. And I think I think when we open, we're still living in that type of world for quite a while.
All right, so that's Massengale today, that we're living. This isn't on Pope. This isn't on the council. It's not on Dan Pope. It's not on the city council, although Latrell Joy yesterday said the order comes from the mayor. She's an attorney. And she's like, hey, the order's coming from the mayor here. The governor's order, according to a handful of cities, says no, we don't have to close non-essential businesses. Now remember, Massengale says in that clip, what does he say, Jody? That we're living under Abbott's orders, right? Well, Matt Martin then asked, well, what about all these cities? What about all these cities that are open? How are they able to open? Here's what was said.
In the way he set stuff up, if they can open up, why can't Lubbock?
Well, I think every community has their ability to interpret the governor's order, but
What? Hang on, wait. Pause it right there. Wait a minute. Every community has an ability to interpret the governor's order. Is that what he just said?
Order, but if you go look at his order, it says specifically that you're to stay at home except to get out and to do essential things, and we think we're in compliance with the governor's order. I think there's some question on whether if those other communities are in compliance or not. You're correct. The governor has been vague in the way that he has guided us down this path.
Wait. So either the governor's order is what we're living under, or the governor's order is completely vague, and cities and communities have every opportunity to interpret the governor's order the way they want to interpret it. Let's start it over, Jody, because, again, hang on, let me put the whiskey over here. Okay. Go ahead, let's play it one more time.
In the way he set stuff up, if they can open up, why can't Lubbock?
Well, I think every community has their ability to interpret the governor's order, but if you go look at his order, it says specifically that you're to stay at home except to get out and to do essential things, and we think we're in compliance with the governor's order. I think there's some question on whether if those other communities are in compliance or not. You're correct. The governor has been vague in the way that he has guided us down this path, and that's why we're anxious today to see if he's vague again today on giving us some type of guidance on when we're given the green light, how we will reopen.
And again, Jody, I will fully admit here, the governor of the state has not been 100% on communication, and he has been vague. if the leader of the state is vague, how about you guys fill the void of leadership and become leaders? Just a thought. I don't know. Sounds like Councilwoman Latrell Joy wants to lead. Maybe some other people should follow suit. Maybe. 770-5790, 1-800-687-0790. Run the break. Whatever. At least I gave $25,000 to the Lubbock Symphony Orchestra last night. That'll make everyone feel better. Chad AC Show, News Talk KFYO. I mean, Jody, and we'll get to the fine. Now, so many of you have tried to call in. I'm sorry. But you take a great business like Robert Lance Jewelers, okay? They can walk up to your car, but you can't let them inside your store. I mean, that it's just, and I'm glad the city is allowing that at least. But these rules just, it makes absolutely no sense. And Councilwoman Latrell Joy is spot on, and she has been spot on for weeks now. The only criticism of Latrell Joy that I have, this is it, and it's minor. I wish she'd push a little bit harder. I wish she would push just a little bit harder, and then that's it. But she's right. There, you can walk into one of these big box stores, and you can buy literally anything that you want. But a small business that has been in this community, hires people in this community, cares about this community, they can't open their doors because the Lubbock City Council, nobody knows who's in charge? Is that it? Is that the real reason? Because in Amarillo, they're allowing non-essential businesses, quote-unquote, non-essential businesses. I hate that term, by the way. But that's what the government calls it. They allow non-essential businesses to open. They have rules in place, no more than 10 at a time, which is what the governor calls for, by the way. When the governor talks about minimizing meetings and minimizing the amount of people, the governor actually has talked about no more than 10 people in a meeting. No more than 10 people can gather together. This is what has been talked about in the state. So in Amarillo, no more than 10 people in a business at one time. Small business. You have to stand 6 feet apart, social distancing inside the store. And you also have to provide, you got to practice good hygiene and do all of that stuff. Those are the rules. For whatever reason, Lubbock doesn't want to do those rules, and they want to say it's all Abbott's fault. Now, I wish Governor Abbott would clarify everything. I wish, I put it on social media every day. I say it I wish the governor would clarify what his executive order actually did, because there is confusion about it. Let's go to the phones. And Rick, you're on KFYO.
Yes. Are you ready for me?
I'm ready, Rick.
Yeah, I have 2 questions, really. These businesses that are shut down, like, say, a barbershop or whatever it is, they're called a non-essential. Okay, at the end of the year, when their school taxes are due, let's say they're shut down for 2 months. Yeah,
well, they'll be essential when the tax bills due.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Are they going to divide their tax dollars? Say they owe $2,000, they going to divide that by 12 and charge them for 10, or what are they going to do?
No, I bet that stormwater fee that the non-essential businesses have to pay, I bet that's going to be essential when it's time to pay that too.
Right. See, so that's kind of not doing them right. And my second question is, the social distancing, I understand all that, and that's great. But you can't have a funeral. You got to do that online. Well, I was in Walmart yesterday, and I told the people at the cashier's desk, I said, well, we ought to start having funerals in here because you can have all the people you want in.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. If they were to sell groceries, and snacks at the funeral, I think they'd be okay.
That'd be okay.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of things that aren't fair to one and all this other stuff. That's all I'm saying.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Thank you, Rick. I appreciate it. And that's exactly what Councilwoman Latrell Joy is saying, is that this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. The Dallas Morning News, they've been Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. They held a party at Dak's house. Did you hear about this, Jody? So they had a lot of people there. Dak Prescott say, no, we only had 10 people here, but it looks bad. It looked bad, right? Dallas Morning News. Here's what they say about Governor Abbott's order that he issued last month. Said any gatherings of people who don't live together is off limits no matter what size. The directive currently in place, and this is where they get it wrong. See, words matter. The issue ordered last month said any gatherings of people who don't live together is off limits no matter what size. And then they quote the order. Every person in Texas shall, except where necessary, to provide or obtain essential services, minimize social gatherings. Again, that's not a ban. The word minimize is not the same word as ban. We have minimized our interactions with friends and family. Have we seen family? I don't know. But we have minimized. We have minimized how many times we have left the house. Have we still left the house? You bet. Many of you have minimized how often you have seen family, but have you still seen family? Yes. Gretchen up in Michigan has said, you are forbidden from seeing family and going to other people's homes. It's a different word. Words matter. And again, the governor hasn't been 100% clear, but I think the city of Lubbock knows better. If Amarillo gets it and all these other towns get it, I'm pretty sure Lubbock gets it as well. They just want to have somebody else to blame. Tomorrow, we'll get to your phone calls and your text messages. Much more than we did today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Follow me on Twitter at ChadHD By the way, I don't think the governor is actually speaking today. I think that's tomorrow. So, I don't think the city's going to get any more clearance today. Maybe we'll get it tomorrow. We'll see. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on the Chad Hasty Show.